That's why we've launched the WildEarth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this very special Fireside Chat here from Mabula Private Game Reserve. Excuse me. My name is James Hendry, and I will introduce you to Sanath Jaishankar shortly. Tonight marks an important evolution in WildEarth's history with the launch of the WildEarth Impact Foundation. Now, we've been bringing nature into a global audience's homes for almost 2 decades now, and tonight that mission is going to extend through the creation of the WildEarth Impact Foundation. And the foundation is completely independent of WildEarth, the for-profit media company, and that's very important for everyone to understand. And the WildEarth Impact Foundation's mission will be to basically tell the stories of the conservation heroes on the ground. We're going to tell you a lot more about that over the next half an hour or so. I'm going to introduce you to Sanath Jaishankar, who has done a phenomenal job setting this thing up. You don't just wander along to an office, sign a couple of papers, and then you have a foundation. You have to sift through reams and reams of jargon. You have to create endless, enormous and intimidating documents with all sorts of 3D images on them and flow charts of all sorts of pillars of stuff to do, and he's going to talk all about that shortly, and really he's done an incredible job as our impact team lead. So, without too much further ado, Sanath, we're going to get into a couple of questions. Before we do that, there is a prize for the WildEarth Impact Foundation's launch to our founder donors. The prize will, I'm not sure when exactly we're going to announce it, but the prize is 3 nights actually, at this incredible place we're sitting now. It's called Kingfisher Villa here at Mabula. It's magnificent. It's for 2 people and only 1 entry per donor. Thank you very much. Please don't try and cheat us, unless you give an enormous amount of money, in which case you can cheat us as much as you like. Okay. You can ask us any questions during the course of the show. You can use the WhatsApp chat line. Alternatively, you can get hold of us on X or on the YouTube chat. Okay, right. We don't have a huge amount of time, so we're going to get into this. We're going to first talk about the WildEarth Impact Foundation's origin and purpose. Sanath, we've been broadcasting nature around about almost 2 decades now, not quite, but almost. What's inspired this evolution into the foundation?
Yeah, absolutely, James. It's actually because of the community that WildEarth has cultivated and fostered over the last 2 decades that we're able to now really think as a company what WildEarth wants to be in the future and how it wants to leave a positive impact. And it's testament to the vision of the current directors, Kim Hewlett and Andre Crawford-Brunt, who really wanted to ensure that as the company continues to grow and expand and evolve, that there is a mechanism and a vehicle for impact that can leave a lasting legacy here in South Africa for social impact and nature conservation. And that was really the inspiration for why the foundation was created.
At its heart, the WildEarth Impact Foundation, or WAIF as we've started calling it, we quite like that, WAIF. You can use that anytime you like. It's about storytelling. Can you elaborate a bit about what that actually means?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mission for WAIF is to showcase nature conservation stories that will not only inspire environmental action, but that deliver tangible outcomes for nature conservation and social impact. And so for what that means for us is we want to showcase stories that have a positive impact in its production and its creation. And then, of course, the content that comes out of the stories and the audiences that it engages, we hope that it inspires them to get involved in some environmental action as well.
Great. I made mention of the complexities of setting up something like this, which I'm extremely pleased that you had to deal with and I didn't. We've got a very specific purpose. How does being a PBO or a public benefit organization help with WAIF or help with donations and that sort of thing?
Right. So to be a South African public benefit organization, it means that all of the activities that WAIF does has to go to a social outcome and a social purpose. And what that enables us to do is to be a non-profit where people are able to donate. South African tax residents or companies are able to donate to the Impact Foundation on a tax-deductible nature. And we are obligated and we have the responsibility that we take very seriously to ensure that the funds that we raise go into these projects that deliver sustainable benefits for nature and for communities.
Okay. So, I mean, what it does basically, being a PBO, ensures that the money that you get, you're not going to go and spend on a new Mercedes-Benz or
Right.
a camera from Paul or gym contract for him or something like that.
Absolutely. And just to add on that, we have a requirement to be 100% transparent
Right.
where the funds are being used. We have to publish on an annual basis the expenditure and whether, in addition to that, whether the outcomes that we anticipated to produce and to results are actually coming into effect, and whether the money is being used accurately for those purposes.
All right, great, fantastic. We're going to just show you a quick clip now, which will explain how all of that works.
WildEarth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the WildEarth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
We'll talk a little bit later about our partnership with Empowers Africa, but I just wanted to quickly get on to, how does WAIF's mission and goals dovetail with WildEarth's, and how does it differ?
Yeah, fundamentally, we feel that there's a shared philosophy of impact and for doing good for the planet, and that's something that WAIF has been inspired to do because of the great work that WildEarth has done. However, structurally, as a nonprofit, we're able to invest in stories that don't really have a commercial rationale,
Right.
and it's because of that that we're able to expand the potential and scope to showcase stories that would otherwise not be funded from a commercial perspective. And so the purpose of WAIF is to really serve as a strategic partner for impact for WildEarth, to raise funds to showcase stories that would otherwise not be told.
And not be told because they're not necessarily commercially appealing.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And I think it's important that, perhaps important to note that our channel provides a platform for some of those stories, but not necessarily the only platform for those stories.
Right, absolutely. Our goal, of course, is to showcase as many stories as possible. Through WildEarth as a platform would be fantastic, but we don't want to limit the scope and reach of the stories that we showcase. And so we are an ability to look for other partners to showcase the same kind of stories and amplify our impact.
Okay. We'll move a little bit on to the WildEarth mission, at least the WAIF mission, not the WildEarth mission. I've never understood the difference between a mission and a vision, and so I'm not going to talk too much about it other than to hand over to Sanath. So tell us why this work is so urgent, why the focus on biodiversity loss and building awareness around this.
Fundamentally, we feel that the issue of biodiversity loss is something that continues to increase, but there's just a sort of poor perception around what are the drivers of biodiversity loss and how people can get involved to make a difference to stop it and to produce positive results for planet and for nature. And the reason why we think that is there are many different things that we see in the news. There's climate change, there's a lot of topics of philanthropic good, and we found that there's very little focus on biodiversity funding, for instance. To give you a sense of the state of the issue, we need almost 6 times the amounts of funding that is currently available at the global level to reduce biodiversity loss to areas where we'll continue to see the flagship species that are known in areas for future generations. And if we don't invest in those solutions immediately, we'll lose iconic species here in South Africa like rhino, but also elsewhere in the world like tigers and gorillas. And it's really important for us that biodiversity loss as a topic on its own becomes something that's part of the global discourse.
Yeah. And I suppose it's something that, we make mention of it on our drives and on our live safaris and on all the other stuff that we do, but we don't necessarily focus in on that stuff because it's not it's not particularly sexy.
Right.
I
And
guess.
to give you an example of
Yeah.
it, South Africa is actually the third most biodiverse country in the world, and yet almost to the level of extinction and endangered species that we have in this country, we're the number 20th of countries at most risk of extinction when it comes to keystone species.
Nobody knows that.
And no one knows that. And
Yeah.
it's because change in biodiversity happens so slowly over time. We don't have melting
Yeah,
icebergs when we think of biodiversity, and so it's important that we continue to raise awareness around this.
And there are a massive number of people doing, excuse me, a huge amount of work in this. Nobody's hearing about what they're doing.
Precisely.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. What do you think the other most pressing issues that we aim to tackle would be?
One is we feel that raising awareness amongst the younger generation of people when it comes to fostering a connection between them and nature is something that we want to spend time in. Almost 50% of global curriculums don't mention issues of biodiversity loss, of climate change, and as the guardians of nature in the future, it's fundamental that we empower younger audiences to understand what's at stake, and so they can get involved and develop a relationship that makes them want to protect nature in the future.
And possibly tell stories in a way that is meaningful to them,
Right.
rather than might be meaningful to me as
Exactly.
I approach my middle years. I think one of the biggest questions that any donor is going to ask, or any potential donor, would be, how do we measure the impact of what we're doing? How are we going to do that?
So what we use at the Impact Foundation are what we call SMART indicators. And it's a way to impact that enables us to be very objective on how we change over time. So SMART indicators are specific, so they're very clear to a program what are our objectives and how we intend change to be. They're going to be measured, so we have some form of understanding what is the change that we're trying to track over time, and they have to be realistic and time bound. So we have a long-term vision that is on showcasing nature conservation stories, but for each project that we invest in, we have very specific goals, and we can talk about some key projects that we have in the pipeline in the near future for WildEarth.
So let's get on to that. I mean, we've got the theory behind what we're trying to do now. Let's talk about those flagship projects. What are the two biggest, or what are the two first flagships that we're going to go after?
Yeah, we're very, very excited around these two prospective projects. The first is to bring 1 million children from around the world on a virtual safari, talking about the issue that we had spoken around, raising awareness for the younger generation and building a connection with nature.
Yeah.
Our goal is to create a purpose-built series dedicated to children with a curriculum that enables them to start that relationship and understanding what nature conservation means. That's our first project. And the second project is we really feel it's important that local communities, as being most affected by issues of biodiversity loss and climate change, but also as guardians of nature in their communities, have an opportunity to take a more meaningful role when it comes to showcasing conservation stories and telling the stories around how WildEarth and nature impacts them. And so we're going to set up a purpose-built Conservation Stories Academy that will be empowering local community members to become filmmakers, presenters, and guides, and join this journey and work that we're doing on showcasing conservation stories.
And just so that everyone's clear, two flagship projects to start with. WildEd, which will be with an ultimate goal of bringing 1 million kids from the world on a virtual safari, or a virtual safari experience of some description.
Right.
And then the second one being the Conservation Story Academy,
Correct.
which will basically be a learning academy, which will create shows which may or may not be commercially viable for the entity itself, and which we can hopefully showcase on WildEarth or on other platforms.
Precisely.
Okay, right, good. Got it straight in my head. I hope everyone else does too. Look, this is something that's been always pretty close to my heart since I was at university, back just before the Rinderpest of 1898. But the empowerment of communities around conservation areas is really where the conservation rubber meets the road, I like to say. Why the focus on communities, do you think? Why is it so important?
Well, no, firstly, they're the most disproportionately burdened by issues of biodiversity
Yeah.
loss, and they're the most reliant on the services and activities that come from ecotourism and the positive benefits that a biodiverse area has. And so we feel that it's an obligation from our sense to really focus on those who are at the front line of facing the effects of biodiversity
Yeah.
loss and empowering them to take a more meaningful role in helping us combat it.
And do you think that through these projects, communities will perhaps who've not necessarily taken a particularly positive attitude to conservation, do you think through these sorts of projects and perhaps connecting with other NGOs in a similar space, do you think that will help improve community attitudes to conservation?
Fundamentally, I think one of the challenges that we've seen in the landscape around empowering local communities to take a role in conservation is oftentimes you have external companies and you have external NGOs that come in and tell local communities what they need to do to protect their land and their environments, when in fact they already know the solutions that they need to do. They just need the resources to enable them to do so. And so a small token of our understanding of how we can do that is when we're building the Conservation Stories Academy, essentially we want to give ownership to the people who ultimately work for the Conservation Stories Academy. So the ownership structure is, as WAIF, we'll be a majority shareholder as a nonprofit, and the balance will be held by a collective trust made up of the individuals who we've helped to train and upskill and have become part of the Conservation Stories Academy.
So that's very powerful. The people who are trained and run the Conservation Stories Academy will be the owners as well.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is very powerful. That's amazing. Other initiatives for the future? Those are the first two. What does the future hold?
We have a lot of plans and we have an ambitious vision to create impact across what we're calling 4 pillars of impact. The first is on empowering that next generation of conservationists, where our Wild Ed program will be our flagship. The second is South Africa stands as an incredible case study on the benefits of rewilding. I'm sure some of you have heard that concept before, but to take degraded land and rehabilitate it and make it into a thriving ecosystem for the benefits of local communities and planet and wildlife. And so we hope to help showcase those stories and the incredible work that leading companies, leading reserves and NGOs are doing across the country on this effort. The third is, as WildEarth has become a recognized brand and voice in conservation, we feel that we have a role to shape the standards of how ecotourism is conducted, the standards of storytelling when it comes to understanding the relationship between people and planet. And so we feel that we have a role to spotlight leaders in the field and elevate their voices as those that can shape the standards of storytelling. And our last is focusing on our sort of empowering communities and empowering local communities. Certainly the Academy is our key priority, which we'll see for the next few years. But within that, we really want to then start empowering certain key groups of individuals. One, for instance, is down the pipeline, we want to empower women as being disproportionately impacted across a series of issues and empowering them to take a more meaningful and leadership role in conservation and showcasing stories of where women have been able to lead, the impact that it can produce for both planet and for their cultures and societies.
I think a good example of this rewilding would be Amakhala, or even Mabula, really. Degraded farmland turned into something very special as a game reserve, and those are great stories to tell. And around the communities, the communities around places like the Sabi Sands, Amakhala, the amount of work that they get from places like this, communities around Mabula, I hate to think how few people were employed around here before this became what it is today.
Right.
So those are massively important stories that we need to tell. Okay, we've only got 11 minutes left, so let's move on to partnerships. Partnerships are obviously massively crucial for any NGO, and this one is no different. How is WildEarth Travel going to be involved with WAIF?
We're really pleased to announce that again it's the vision of the people working at WildEarth Travel, where they've decided an announcement that they'll be donating 1% of net turnover to the WildEarth Impact Foundation as their commitment to sustainability and social impact, understanding that they also have a role to play in ensuring that the funds that we raise as a business continue to go into social good and environmental conservation. And so that's our initial collaboration and partnership that we're going to continue to build. And over the few months, we'll be working together to understand if there's any other synergies that we can create between WildEarth Travel and the Impact Foundation to ensure that the money that is raised by WildEarth Travel, by people coming on trips and exploring the beauty of South Africa and beyond, is actually going to social purpose and to conservation purpose as well.
So I think that's quite key, that if you book through WildEarth Travel, some of the cost of your safari, which will not be insubstantial, I suspect, will come to the foundation, and that will go to making a big difference to the lives of the people that live around conservation areas. So that's very powerful. In addition to the fact that if you go to a lodge, your fees are already contributing to communities. This is another way that they're going to contribute at no extra cost to you. What is Empowers Africa? Why do we have a partnership with Empowers Africa, and why is it important?
So Empowers Africa is a US-based Section 501c3 charity. And we are really proud to join a collective of organizations, similar organizations that sit within the Empowers Africa portfolio, all doing phenomenal work in conservation here in South Africa and beyond. And for us, it's really important because it enables our US-based viewers and donors to donate to us via Empowers Africa on a tax-deductible basis, which creates both benefits for people who want to donate to the Impact Foundation and, of course, for us who want to raise funds in areas like the United States.
So in the US and in South Africa, it's possible to do this on a tax-deductible basis. Not from other parts of the world yet.
Yet, that's the key point. At the moment, we're able to issue tax-deductible donations to US and South African tax residents. At the moment, that's sort of where we are now. Over time, as we see our donor pool grow, that may change, but for now, it's US-based tax donors and South African-based tax donors.
Okay. Any other foundations that we're looking to in the future?
We continue to reach out to a variety of foundations and
partners, sorry.
And partners to create mutual areas of impact. Certainly, we've identified key partnerships both here in South Africa, and those are really around spotlighting the incredible work that they're doing, but also looking at organizations in the United States and in Europe and understanding what kind of stories they want to showcase, what kind of stories they want to be told, and try to build mutual synergies through those partnerships. So currently very much exploring additional partnerships as we continue to find our ground.
And we'd be happy to hear from you if you've got ideas on potential partners for us in this space. I mean, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. We don't know it all by any stretch. We're just starting out. And so anybody who you think is doing good work out in the areas, not necessarily only where we operate, but any conservation space, would be happy to hear from them or from you, and you can recommend them to us. We're going to have a little break, I suppose, to have a look at a summary of the donation drive.
WildEarth has launched a special fundraising drive for our non-profit, the WildEarth Impact Foundation. We're raising funds to source, create, and showcase thousands of untold stories. Stories that spark real action in conservation and social impact. Visit our website to donate and explore how you can become a founding donor.
So I suppose the question now is, how do people get involved with this? It's intriguing. I find it immensely intimidating at the same time, and I've been really grateful to have your leadership navigating the forests of jargon and complexity that come with something like this. How do our viewers get involved?
There's many ways that we've wanted to bring people on this journey of impact with us. Of course, the first is to enable us to do the work that we set out to do by donating to the WildEarth Impact Foundation. And all you have to do in order to do so is visit our webpage, which is wildearth.tv/WEIF. And the instructions are there in terms of where you're based and how you can donate. But beyond that, we really want to bring people along the journey and to showcase the stories that they want to be told. And so we're currently looking out. If you have any suggestions on stories that you would love for us to look at and investigate, please let us know. Let us know by looking at our email, which is also on our website, which is waif@wildearth.tv. Tell us the stories that you want to tell. Suggest the organizations that you want us to showcase. If you have an incredible organization that you know here in South Africa or beyond that you think is doing phenomenal work, we'd love to reach out to them. So we're very much in this collaborative stage where we really want people to help guide our path to impact and understand where change is needed the most and where we can be the most helpful.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily the case that we'd have to go out and make those stories. If you have stories, or you know a foundation that's got a great story and they just, it's sitting on YouTube with 34 views from family and friends, let us know. We have the power, we have the platform to really showcase stuff like that, both in the live drives and in specific shows outside of those live drives. So please do bear that in mind. It's quite important. I've just now run out of my notes, but I shall find them again. Right. I tell you what. Let's go into the prize.
Yes.
And yes, that is very exciting. Give us the details of it and how people can enter.
So during this fundraising campaign, we're focusing on two phenomenal prizes. The first is, of course, as James mentioned, to win a stay here at Kingfisher Villa and Suites on Mabula Private Game Reserve. It's a 3-night stay that you can win. All you have to do is donate to the WildEarth Impact Foundation to be eligible to stand a chance to win. It's one donation per donor, per entry. The second is we want to really, as I mentioned, bring people along the journey with us for impact. And so what we're proposing is anyone who donates more than $1,000 or more will be recognized as a founding donor of the WildEarth Impact Foundation, which not only means that your name will be there as on the honor roll on our website as a founding donor, but we want to bring you into the inner circle of the work that we do. We want to keep you regularly updated with what we're doing and to keep you sort of informed and part of this journey as we start to create a strategy for impact.
Yeah. Okay, and for viewers who are passionate about conservation storytelling but don't necessarily have the means to donate, how else can they get involved?
Use your platform to amplify the work that the WildEarth Impact Foundation is doing. At the moment, the challenges of any new philanthropic organization is that people globally just don't know about us. And so even the small role of sharing our existence, sharing the website with your networks and your friends, letting people know in your conversations that a company like this exists, does phenomenal work in order to get the word out and reach the right people that we need to in order to fund the projects that we need to fund.
Outside of the donation campaign, people have often asked in relation to WildEarth, but possibly much more importantly now in relation to the Impact Foundation, if they wanted to leave something in their wills, is that possible and how can it be done?
Yes, absolutely. And, it's something that we take very seriously, and we're extremely grateful for the interest that we've received so far. So at the moment, South African tax residents as well as U.S. tax residents can certainly put WildEarth as a beneficiary in a will or in a bank account, and there's clear instructions on our website on how you can do so. If you have any issues, of course, please do not hesitate to contact us at waif@wildearth.tv, and we can provide each specific individual with the technical information that they need. But certainly it's something that we are able to do, and we're grateful for your consideration.
Okay. Finally, what last message do you have for a potential donor to WAIF? How is their contribution going to make a difference?
Well, it's more of a thank you to the WildEarth community that has enabled WAIF to exist, and it's through your support and love for nature and for conservation that we are in a position that we want to also create impact ourselves. And so continue to be inspired by nature, and we're grateful that we will be part of that ambition in showcasing stories that would otherwise not be told when it comes to nature conservation and social impact.
All right. Thank you very, very much for coming along and hosting us here. I'm really excited about this journey with WAIF. I've learnt an intimidating amount from you over the last couple of months, and it's really a privilege to have you on board with us. Thank you to all of you who have been on our journey, and please continue to bring others along the journey with us. I'm just going to quickly summarize. If you would like to make a donation, wildearth.tv/WEIF. Any questions that you might have, you can send to weif@wildearth.tv. Those URLs and addresses will appear on the bottom of the screen now. And it's important to understand, I'm going to re-emphasize this, that the WildEarth Impact Foundation is an entirely separate entity from WildEarth, the for-profit media production house. There will be some overlap in staffing, but the governance of both organizations are completely separate. So it's not like WildEarth, on a day that it might be struggling, can come to the Impact Foundation and say, well, come on, give us a little bit of a loan. That's physically impossible. It's totally illegal. It would never happen. And so it's important that everybody watching this understands that, because I know that we have, as WildEarth, asked for donations before. This is completely different. This is the start of something very exciting, very new, empowering communities through their own stories, and we're hoping it's going to make a massive and tangible benefit to both biodiversity loss, to community empowerment, and to kids especially. Thanks everyone, and we will see you on safari on Tuesday for members and on Wednesday for the rest of you. Thanks for joining us.